Welcome back. Now, the election of some parliamentary portfolio committee chairpersons has been found to be controversial. And despite a public outcry, some of the ANC's former public office holders whose names have been tainted have made it as chairpersons of committees in Parliament. Sinenhlanhla Mchunu, who blames the public for failing to exercise its voice on matters of national importance and to hold leaders accountable. Sinenhlanhla Mchunu is the Secretary of the National Elders of South Africa, and Solly Mapaila, the South African Communist Party First Deputy General Secretary, joins me now to discuss this matter. Thanks to both of you for coming through. Let's start here, Sinenhlanhla. If you could just let our viewers in on your views regarding this matter.
Morning, Sakina, and morning to the viewers. I believe that we are not exercising our democracy. Firstly, we outsource our power for a period of 5 years, and the only time we are able and actually take a stance is in 5 years when we elect. So this participatory democracy, representative democracy, is hindering our democracy, hindering citizens in terms of them exercising their full rights in a democratic society. We would prefer that we have a participatory democratic system in our country.
So how is the system hampering citizens from fully participating?
I mean, the current electoral system does not allow citizens to stand for political office. It also hinders them from actually lobbying at any given stage when they are unhappy about services to actually take out those political officers and elect new ones. So we have to wait every time. We cannot hold them directly accountable to us. When they are in Parliament, they are there representing their political parties, not constituencies. And actually, it's the IEC that has failed us, because one of their duties or obligations is to educate on the electoral system, provide electoral education nationally to all citizens, and also to provide a review of the current electoral laws, which it has not done for a long period of time.
Solly Mapaila, do you agree with that sentiment, that the current system actually disempowers citizens?
Well, at national level, yes, but at local government level, no, because at local government we have a mixture. We've got both proportional and representative system. But you will know that Justice Jafta had made a ruling in one case regarding this matter, to the extent that individuals could actually stand for elections. But to the extent that the electoral laws have not been reformed, it was perhaps impossible to do that for these recent elections. Nonetheless, it's important that citizens throughout the year, every time, they must hold leadership accountable, public representatives particularly. But we do have a very robust system, and I think that it's the political parties that have, in the main, failed appropriate engagement with the people regarding that particular system. For instance, if you take the local government system, we've got ward committees, which are instruments at the ward level to determine what priorities of development and services should be focused in that particular ward. And they can take up those matters and also are allowed to participate or to go and observe in the council as members of the public to see how the council agendas are being conducted and whether their issues are being put on the agenda. So in the absence of that active citizenry, then you rely largely on representative democracy. But the SACP, for instance, is one such organization that has taken up issues across the board at all levels, and we have not waited, for instance, for 5 years to hold people accountable.
How would you respond to someone who says that instruments such as ward committees have been hijacked by political parties?
Yeah, that's the truth. But it's the same with representative democracy. If you look into the US system, in fact, where the whole notion of capture of state emerged in the 50s, there were scholars that talked about what they call deep capture, where, for instance, constituency-based representatives were bought and represented various corporates. Corporates funded them to go and win constituencies, and when they become members of the Congress, they only spoke purely and absolutely for the corporates. So it doesn't mean that representative democracy in that respect doesn't have weaknesses on its own. But I think the mixture becomes important in that regard. And I think the local government system, in our case, it's a far advanced system perhaps than many others in the world. We may have to look into whether we can incorporate those at the national level, and also learn from other areas. For instance, I'll be going to Rohingya in Syria sometime in the next few weeks. There's a massive, beautiful people's representative system there. I've been in the liberated zones of the Kurdish people, where they have a very most dynamic people's representative system. Even the co-determination of leadership. For instance, when they elect the president, they elect co-president, a man and a woman.
So Sinenhlanhla, listening to that and what's happening at local government level, where there is a mixed system at play, citizens still fail to hold even their elected representatives at local government level accountable. What sort of culpability do you think citizens should assume in this instance?
Citizens in our country are not aware of their rights. That's the first thing, because of the lack of political education that is provided. For instance, if you go to a public department and go for services, you're immediately assumed to be a client. You are not a beneficiary. Once you assume the status of being a client, you have already sold your power. The service provider does not consider that they are servants to you as the beneficiary. So you are going there begging. That's the mentality that we have. Hence, we have so many protests. And when we protest, we harm ourselves in the end. Because if we had the power, we would know that when we protest, it's actually the particular individuals that we can move out of that system, out of the power, because, our laws are there and they are good. Our policies are good. So where is the problem? We are disempowered because we lack the knowledge of what we can do. Even at local level, when we say you are voting, some people stand as individuals, but those people are actually coming from political parties.
But how far can you push that particular peanut? Because at some point, yes, you can cry about not receiving the requisite or sufficient civic education, but isn't it also incumbent upon the individual citizens to empower themselves in this regard? We live in the information age. Things like the Constitution, those booklets are readily, maybe not readily available. They should be. They may not be, but they should be there at the disposal of ordinary citizens to empower themselves.
Yeah, it's good that you are saying that they are not readily available. Maybe some, but you know that we come from a disadvantaged background. And our education system is still catching up. There are many disadvantages, especially in the rural areas where majority of us come from. So empowering yourself, you do need a little bit of help from our system.
So, Solly Mapaila, if we look at what's been happening in Parliament, for example, with the appointment of the chairpersons of the portfolio committees who are meant to conduct oversight over the various ministerial portfolios, that has come under the spotlight for being controversial, given that people who have been tainted, people who have been implicated in state capture, for example, are heading up those portfolio committees. So going back to Politics 101, perceptions are all powerful. Why is it then that the ruling ANC and its alliance partners don't seem to take these perceptions seriously?
Let me pick up first on the point that is raised by Sinenhlanhla, quite powerful point that we don't have enough, not much political education, but citizens' education. Because, for instance, if you read the Municipal Systems Act, it actually states that the council is the council and its people. In fact, even determines that before the council passes a local budget, it must take it to the people. So normally you will find that municipalities that do not consult, that budget may be illegal.
Oh, that means perhaps yes. The majority of budgets yes, that are passed are illegal.
That's a very important point about citizens' role. So we've got legislation, we've got the laws, we've created the framework. It is now the active participation of the people. In fact, our Red October campaign now is focusing on local government, and we want to invite Sinenhlanhla and others to come on board to activate this, because the law is there. And in some instances, just some road shows to engage with the people and without substantial taking their inputs into the budgetary system, which is where the citizens are fully empowered in terms of legislation. But coming to the point that you raised, obviously we had expressed our regrets in this case. I think the worst thing was the fact that when we nominated, or when people were nominated for Parliament, despite that there were allegations and perceptions of wrongdoing against this or that particular individual, they were able to pass the scrutiny of the electoral laws to qualify. And later on, they also, that is through the IEC Act, and they also passed the ANC Integrity Commission a process, which I think is something that must be engaged with within the framework of the alliance, so that that process can be as robust as possible. For instance, we did raise the name of Comrade Zukiswa as the Communist Party in the meeting, and we were assured that her matter was resolved. And quite later on, the DSG of the ANC came back to say no. After our meeting, they went to do further inquiry, and when they received the report, and they then consulted with us that actually we were correct. And given the information from the court, they then withdrew her from being a member of Parliament. But it's quite unfortunate that we had to discuss this matter. Some of those comrades should not be heading those committees, literally on the basis of the violation of the ethical behavior of what is expected of our public representative as a movement, not necessarily what is expected of the law. We have always said that our members should be far ahead of the ordinary law. They should be measured by a higher quality, and therefore that is why we are a liberation movement. So this debate, it's quite unfortunate. It shouldn't happen, but we hope that South Africans are also watching how we act going forward, and that we can use a combination of various factions in the movement at the expense of the people of this country. We need people who will serve, and people must trust those who are in service. But
we are watching you. And of course, you released a statement as the South African Communist Party, whereby you stated quite vehemently that you will not allow, you will not support tainted people to hold positions.
Yeah, for instance, as I say, in the meeting we had, and I must say, we accept both the weaknesses and the strengths of the team that we have sent to Parliament as a collective team representing all of us. But we did, for the record, raise a concern on each and every name. Each and every name. We debated that. Even though we didn't accept the general assurance that, no, these people passed through the scrutiny of the IEC Act, these people passed through the scrutiny of the Integrity Commission of the ANC. We raised each and every name.
Hence, we're talking about the power of perception, not about people passing, scrutiny via some or other instrument. It's the perception that the public has about these people who have been implicated in very serious matters regarding the South African state. But what does that mean for ordinary South Africans when you, as the Communist Party who sit in an alliance with the ANC, are unable to have your voice heard in terms of accountability of people who are tainted, as it were, who are still elected to positions where they will now conduct oversight, when they themselves have been found to be of questionable character in the past? What does that mean for ordinary citizens who are trying to make their voices heard?
Sakina, I agree with you on that. We have raised these questions ourselves. The movement, as you know, the situation now in the movement, the consequences of conferences, we have these individuals until such time that we reach that stage as a movement, that such kind of people won't even come closer to the movement. And we are embarking on a massive process, both all of the organization, the party included, the ANC included, on organizational renewal. So that means the cadre that we are looking into will be measured differently from the ones that we have. And of course, in that particular process, it may mean that there could be withdrawal of some of the cadres that are already deployed in the name of the movement.
Sinenhlanhla, your take on that situation?
Well, you see, if the list was actually coming from constituencies, it would be different, not from a political party. Because you find even those who are actively involved in different political parties, they will complain about or have questions about actually the democracy within a political party. That when the list comes, they are already told as branches that these are the people that we are voting for. So they actually are powerless. The names are already there. You find that, look at now at the situation now where ministers have resigned. Who's going to take their place? Is it going to go back to the branches to say, find people who are going to replace them? No, it's not.
And all of this very interesting. Just finally, still on, elected representatives and accountability, the public protector, because I want to pulse Mr. Mapaila on the SACP statements. But what's your take on that position, that office, which is a critical office in terms of, citizens and the citizenry holding people accountable?
That office is very important, but we have lost faith in it. As
Why?
Citizens. As you were saying, that perceptions are important. Once you get embroiled in political battles, when you are supposed to be neutral, then you are already tainted. In whatever way, that office has to work extra hard for it to gain our trust as citizens once again.
So as the SACP, you've come out quite hard on this, and you have labeled this office as one that's currently being used by rogue elements as a hired gun. That's quite hectic. So who are the rogue elements that is using this office?
Sakina, first let's say that the SACP supports all Chapter 9 institutions, including the Public Protector's Office. However, we have called for the current incumbent to undergo an inquiry in Parliament to determine a fitness to hold that office, given particular recent rulings against that particular office. To the extent of the statement that I've made, I'm worried that Sinenhlanhla may soon receive a determination to appear before her. We have taken up the matter. We have responded yesterday as the SACP to that matter, and we'll see whether she accepts our response to the subpoena that she sent to me. On that basis, we'll take it from there.
Who are the rogue elements?
Well, if it goes further than where our response, and then we'll get into the details regarding that space.
But surely you had the names in mind when you made the statement, when you said rogue elements are using the public protector as a hired gun. surely you were speaking about specific people. Who are they?
Sakina, if I may say, the matter for me particularly is sub judice. So it becomes unfair to comment on it, actually. That's why the broadness of our response is the fact that we need such office to be an effective office that can represent all our citizens.
Well, we have to leave it there. Those were the sentiments of Sinenhlanhla Mchunu, Secretary of the National Elders of South Africa, and Solly Mapaila, SACP's first Deputy General Secretary, on some of the controversial appointments to portfolio committee positions in Parliament, and also the citizenry and their involvement in the day-to-day political scenarios. So let's take a break. On the other side, we'll have your latest news.